one of the things that stood out is players that have come from pretty rough backgrounds and have really gone on to excel. Probably some in the Brazilian team like Richarlison. And there's this really nice story in The Athletic on how he had fought in all odds, and that was the only chance for him to make a professional place. Do you know of some of the other players offhand that you know who have had such really inspiring journeys?
That's the story for most South American players. I mean, we can talk about that. We can talk about Enner Valencia and where he came from. We can talk about Messi and where he came from, and Neymar where he came from, and Cristiano Ronaldo where he came from. I mean, we can talk about that. Football, because football for the most part is a lower class sport. Maybe not in some places in the world, it's not the case. And again, I'll use the U.S. as an example. Most, if not all, of the players in that play for the U.S. men's national team are not from poor backgrounds. They're from upper middle class backgrounds where they've had it pretty good. They've had it now. I'm not saying that it was easier for them to get to where they're at, to have the level of success, but the path was a little less rockier for them compared to others. And they've been, despite that, they still have to go and journey through that path in order to get to where they are. It's not that it's layered in gold for them either. Let's be honest. But you can talk about that about many of the players on various South American national teams. Hearing the story of players like Giorgian de Arrascaeta, who as a kid his father was the one that would wash horses, and he would go. Actually, Georgian was named after a horse that his father was taking care of, and he ended up winning a couple of races and earned him some money. Darwin Nunez, who comes over from a city that on the border of Brazil, and he had to end up going from it's about a 6-hour drive from where he's at to Montevideo to be able to try out for Peñarol, and wasn't even looked at twice. And his mother had to work to be able to buy his boots. So I mean, these are very prevalent stories that many haven't been able to dig into. And Richarlison is just another one that we can add to that list, which is just absolutely phenomenal and also borderline unbelievable. I mean, it sounds kind of like Rocky slash Slumdog Millionaire type of stories that you end up hearing in football all the time about players that do make it.
Who have been the hidden gems of this World Cup? One of the person that stood out in Argentina's second game was Enzo Fernandez. Not really a hidden gem in terms of
Yes,
scouting for him.
you started out with the first one. It's funny you say that because now he's in Real Madrid's radar. So it looks like he might be going to Real Madrid after being less than a year, actually less than 3 months at Benfica. So it shows you how his stock has risen, what that's been able to do with him in terms of playing for the Argentine national team and being a protagonist. Moises Caicedo.
How do you think the quality of football has been? And number
The,
two is, do you think the controversies are taking away from the football that we're watching?
the quality has been very up and down for
Mhm.
the most part. It's been very up and down. Uh, Again, it has to do a lot with the preparation, has to do a lot with the injuries too, has to do a lot with the fatigue. Now, let me give you a prime example. The Premier League ended, what was it, on in the middle of November. From the time the season started to the end of to the World Cup break, they had played 4 more matches compared to that same date the previous year. And I'm not including Champions League, I'm not including Carabao Cup, I'm not including and I'm not even including the FIFA International Date. So it's been a lot more matches compressed in a very smaller time window. I'm talking in the Premier League. And now, I'm not saying that it hasn't happened in other leagues, but the most primary example is the Premier League. Because not only that, when they return, they start playing Boxing Day. And then they continue through. The FA Cup begins. So it's a compressed schedule on both ends that sandwich the World Cup. So when you look at it, as you hear coming through, but one of the factors is that the fatigue that's coming in. They're saying, well, a lot of teams, a lot of players are going to come in very fresh. Maybe not so fresh as one would think, because there's a lot of matches that they played in a short period of time. So when you look at it from that perspective, that is also a big factor. But also the quality of football, trying to be more vertical. Some are trying to be a bit more precautionary in their approach. So you have a lot of that. Some that are trying to play maybe 2 or 3 gears too fast. Some that are definitely playing 2 or 3 gears too slow. So you end up having that. But I believe that this World Cup will be one when you start to see the more important pivotal matches. I guess starting in this phase of the tournament on out, the football should and could get better. Every World Cup has had controversies, especially every World Cup that's been a non-European and non-North American World Cup. Let's be completely real. Let's go back to South Africa. Well, what was the media saying about South Africa prior to the World Cup in 2010? Let's be real as far as that's concerned. There's going to be issues. There are issues at every other place in the world, and I'm not saying that where I come from there isn't, because I can go and start saying about the issues. I mean, I try and defend what's mine as much as possible, but I'm real about the issues that are very prevalent in my country, and I talk about it. I'm very open about it. And I'm very vocal about it. So who am I to go in somewhere else's space and tell them what their what their problems are when my glass house is full of cracks?